Who's gonna be the next Straw Hat? Every One Piece fan has a favorite character they want to see join the crew, but who would be the best choice? Who would be perfect to board the Sunny? In this video, we're gonna answer exactly that, and we'll also take a look at who's already 99% inside the crew. And the coolest thing is that here, we can really dream big. After all, Luffy has already invited a tree, a zombie unicorn, the legs of a centaur, and even a guy trapped in a chest to join the crew. So yes, before you doubt anyone on this list, remember that our captain is Monkey D. Luffy, and with him, pretty much anything is possible. So you already know, right? Welcome to Nerdopolis. And we're starting with Charlotte Pudding, who was once Sanji's bride. And even though the wedding started as a scheme, there's no denying that in the end, something real happened there. She saved Sanji more than once, cried for him, and even with all the trauma she carries, she showed she can be that sweet and loving woman she always pretended to be. After Big Mom's downfall, she was left completely unprotected and ended up being captured by Blackbeard's pirates. Now imagine if Luffy's crew went there to rescue her. The chance of her boarding the Sunny absolutely exists. And imagine Sanji with a wife on the ship. It would be total chaos. Not to mention that Pudding, just like Nico Robin, can read the Poneglyphs, which would make her extremely useful in the search for the One Piece. This would undoubtedly bring a new dynamic to the group, and the interactions would be really fun. Would Sanji change the way he behaves around Nami and Robin? How do you think he'd act with a wife on board?
The next character that everyone thought would join the Sunny for good was Carrot. She lived with the Straw Hats, fought alongside them, and won our hearts. She was practically guaranteed to stay. Everything was pointing in that direction. But then, out of nowhere, Oda names her Queen of Zoo and simply removes her from the story. The truth is that Carrot had everything she needed to continue. She represented the new generation with a hunger for adventure. She was already loved by the crew members, and her emotional bond with Pedro, who always said that everyone has their moment, would have fit perfectly with her joining the crew. Not to mention that Pedro himself said he believed Luffy would be the pirate to change the world. So everything was already lined up for Carrot to join the crew for real. The problem is that Oda didn't wrap up her arc well. She was tossed back to Zoo as if she had never been part of the journey. And that was not only disappointing, it left the feeling of an unfinished story. However, our only hope is that if there really is a great war at the end of the story, Carrot might return as part of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. She could unite the forces of Zoo with Wano's territory, which is now under the Mugiwara's protection. It would be a perfect alliance between the Mink tribes and the Straw Hats, and a symbolic way to honor not only Pedro, but Wano and everything she lived alongside the crew. And now we arrive at Laboon. Yes, the Guardian of Reverse Mountain is on this list. Laboon waited for years, believing in the return of his companions. He has already shown he has loyalty, and when Brook finally reunites with his old friend, that moment will absolutely break anyone emotionally. The most beautiful part is that Luffy also promised that he would sail around the world and come back to fight him. It would be simply poetic to see Brook fulfilling his promise with a smile and Luffy returning, closing the cycle. The next one on this list is perhaps one of the most beloved by fans. I'm talking about Charlotte Katakuri, Big Mom's second oldest son. He and Luffy had one of the most memorable fights in the entire One Piece anime. It wasn't just a hero versus villain battle, it was a duel of respect. No wonder he's so loved. After everything, Katakuri made it clear that he recognizes Luffy as a true warrior. And with Big Mom's downfall, the future of her pirates became uncertain. Of course, Katakuri has responsibilities with his siblings, but the idea of seeing him at Luffy's side in the final war sparks everyone's imagination. He would be a brutal ally. And on top of that, the only one capable of keeping the crew's sweets intake under control.
And now we arrive at Mr. 2. He has already risked his life for Luffy more than once, and the relationship between the two was completely unlikely at the beginning. But as I warned at the start of the video, with Monkey D. Luffy commanding the Sunny, nothing is ever normal. Bon Clay represents a kind of loyalty that very few characters in this world have. It's crazy to think how far he went for the Straw Hat, knowing that he was Luffy's enemy just a short while before in Alabasta. But when you think about it, One Piece has already shown us that just because people have clashed before, that doesn't mean they can't become family later. Look at Frankie. He beat Usopp up back in Water 7, and now they're bandmates. If Bon Clay appears again, and we all want that to happen, there is no more beautiful ending for him than joining Luffy aboard the Sunny. And now we have a somewhat controversial name, Kobe. That fragile kid from the Alvida pirate ship who looked at Luffy with admiration and thought, that's what I want to be. But no. And even though he chose the path of the Marines, he was was never an enemy. He was always just a kid who wanted to do the right thing. He knows that the day will come when his ideals will clash with those of the Straw Hats. However, if the world government becomes the main villain at the end, he won't stand by doing nothing and following tyrannical orders. Can you imagine Kobe turning his back on the world government to stand beside Luffy and face Imu-sama? It's important to say that I said turning his back on the government, not on the Marines. That's very different. Even if it's only during the final war, seeing Luffy and Kobe fighting side by side against the common enemy would be one of the most emotional moments in One Piece history. He doesn't need to become a pirate. He just needs to remember that Luffy was the first person who believed in him. Maybe Kobe will be the final piece that unites the Marines with the Straw Hat Grand Fleet against the final tyrant, just like Roger and Garp once did. As I said, we can really dream big here, because when it comes to Luffy and his protagonist power, nothing is truly impossible.
But some characters don't even require us to dream that big. They're practically already part of the crew. All that's missing is making it official. And the first one we can mention is Bonnie. She lived through one of the most emotional arcs in the entire One Piece anime. She discovered the whole truth about Kuma, met Nika, and smiled genuinely next to Luffy. She has all the ingredients of a Straw Hat: a noble cause, an emotional connection, and a very clear dream. But I confess that Bonnie could also fit perfectly alongside the revolutionaries, following Kuma's path, protecting the oppressed, and fighting against the celestial dragons. That would be the natural direction for someone who carries the pain she carries. Even so, after seeing her with Luffy, it's impossible to deny how perfectly she fits in with the crew. And we saw how quickly food brought them together. The fact is, there's no real reason for her to leave the Sunny. Another character we met in Egghead was Lilith. She escaped with the Straw Hats and was already totally in sync with the crew. Her personality fits the crew extremely well. Her explosive behavior and mad scientist brain make her perfect for the role of the Straw Hat scientist. She already has the job. It's basically just waiting for Luffy to make it official. And honestly, if the world turns upside down, it's good for them to have someone aboard the Sunny who understands technology. Now let's be honest, the only reason Shirahoshi isn't on the Sunny is because she wouldn't fit. She carries the weight of being the ancient weapon Poseidon, and even so, she never wished for war. She has one of the most simple and beautiful dreams in the entire anime. She just wants to go to the surface and see the sky with her own eyes. And although her situation resembles Vivi's, a princess with responsibilities, Shirahoshi has one fundamental difference. She doesn't need to rule. Her brothers are already ready to take the throne. She, on the other hand, was made for something greater. She has a role that goes far beyond the Ryugu Kingdom. As Poseidon, she's essential for the future of the world. And as a character, she's the emotional bridge between humans and fishmen. Standing beside Luffy in the final war wouldn't just be poetic, it would be necessary. I admit that her crew role would be a bit odd, but maybe that's the point. Shirahoshi wouldn't join to fill a job. She would join to fulfill her destiny.
And now we reach two characters who aren't on the Sunny only because they chose not to be. Both received an invitation from the captain and the support of the fans, but refused because before continuing their adventures, they needed to protect their people. But before I tell you who they are, it's important to say that there's one type of person Luffy would never allow on his crew, and that's the kind of person who forgets to like the video. So go ahead and hit that like button, because besides competing for a spot on the Sunny, you help Nerdopolis grow a lot. Our goal for this video is 1,000 likes, and I'm sure that with your help, we can reach it. Now, yes, let's meet the two characters who are already 99% part of the crew. And the first one, of course, is Yamato, who is practically an unofficial Straw Hat. She declared herself a member, and of course Luffy accepted. She wanted to set sail with the crew to see the world, just like her idol Odin did. However, the only reason she didn't join was her choice to stay in Wano to protect the country. Exactly like Jinbei back in Big Mom's territory. Her journey as Kazuki Odin only ends when she finally set sail with Luffy. And the one who has definitely been part of the crew for a long time is Vivi. The only reason she's not on the ship today is because she chose to stay in Alabasta out of love for her people. But that X on her arm was the symbol that forever sealed her bond with the crew. Even outside the ship, she represents everything the Straw Hats stand for. We know the Nefertari family is one of the 20 families that founded the world government, and therefore has a major connection with the celestial dragons. Vivi's kidnapping pushed her away from her homeland, and since Alabasta is no longer safe for her, there's only one place she can truly return to now. If the end of One Piece really is the great confrontation against Imu-sama and the celestial dragons, she won't be able to stay out of it. Vivi is not just an ally. She may be one of the final pieces that will ignite the fuse of the revolution. Now, something very important. All these characters saw in Luffy someone worthy of being followed. In one way or another, the Straw Hat earned the respect and admiration of each of them. And if you want to know how he did that, click on this video right here where I show you the characters who respect Luffy the most in One Piece. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, leave your like to help us reach our goal. And thank you so much for coming to Nerdopolis.